Hi, as Xenia mentioned, I'm the editor-in-chief at Outland, and the intersection of museums and Web3 is something we pay close attention to, so I'm really grateful to Diane for inviting me to moderate this conversation today. When Outland launched at the end of 2021, I knew I wanted to publish collector profiles to get a better understanding of who is participating in the new market for digital art enabled by NFTs and what motivates them. And in the beginning, we really focused on individual collectors. But in the summer of 22, when museums started announcing acquisitions of NFTs, we started to do a lot of interviews with institutional directors and curators about why they're engaging with this and how they see that fitting in their engagement with media art. And so we've talked to people from the Los Angeles Museum, County Museum of Art, ICA Miami, Center Pompidou. I also interviewed Daniel Heist from ZKM and Sabina Himmelsbach from HEC. And it was really interesting to see that while a lot of American institutions are focused on NFTs in terms of collections and fundraising, these European institutions were thinking them more about education, outreach, and even governance. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today, how museums are using Web3 tools to give some of the control and authority that has traditionally been held by curators and board members to anyone who is willing to participate. So why don't we start by just having the panelists say a bit about your background, how you got interested in decentralization, and how you are implementing it at your organizations. Ugo, can you start?
Yes, hello. I'm Ugo. I'm working at HEC. I'm their head of communications, and we implemented last year our own Friends of HEC. It's kind of a decentralized autonomous organization. So for us, it was like the main idea to involve the community that is not coming to Basel, it's all around the globe, and to be involved at HEC. So we have a DAO.
We don't have a DAO yet. Hi, my name is Marina Nething. I'm digital curator of Museum Ulm, which sounds quite exotic, I know. Before starting that in January this year, I was project manager for Next Museum IO, which is a platform for swarm curation. And this is how, I personally and the Museum Ulm embarked on this Web3 journey that kept us busy for 4 years. My interest or our interest for decentralization comes with swarm curation and with a platform that is considered as a public good because it's fully funded publicly. So how can we share? How can we operate together? How can we make sure that everybody can participate? And this is how it started. And I'm looking very much forward to this conversation.
Amazing to meet you all. Hey everyone, Miki from ArtSect and London here. Started my blockchain journey in 2017, just after everyone made all their money and was looking at economics, like, wow, this is really interesting. And then I set up a property DAO in 2020 in London. So we started with Yoga Box, which was for nomadic travelers to live and operate a building. And then we did Yoga Box, Media Box, Arts Box, and looking at Plants Box next around vertical farming. They're all DAOs, and they're all circular communities using DAO governance to manage the physical assets. So we started Yoga Box, and then in 2021, I think, we set up ArtSect Gallery as a DAO in London, in Hackney, in the warehouses, using the pool of artists from our communities anyway, and just launched into that using a warehouse. It was a really old 1800s warehouse in London, and we augmented it with all of the digital technology, AR headset, VR headsets, AR screens, etc. And just, really love working at that intersection of technology and community.
Great. Thank you all for that. So I think the promise of decentralization often talks about how anyone can participate, but in practice, often people with very specific interests end up getting involved. And so I am curious to hear you talk more about the communities or swarms who you are working with. Ugo, you mentioned that HEC HexDAO really is about engaging an audience outside of Basel, and I was wondering if you could talk more about the people who are involved in the Friends of Heck and like what their interest is in participation.
I mean, we founded it for a reason during the pandemic because Hack was closed. So our main interest was like the global audience. Right now, it's Europe, people from Europe and from the States. And in the first season, it was also from South America and all over the globe. Now it's a little bit more based in Europe. But mostly the community is not from Switzerland, which is very interesting to see that like really people have the interest to participate in such a small institution we are, but still with kind of a global outreach, and they want to participate with us, for us, and together to create something very special.
Marina, I was wondering if you could talk about like in specific terms a project that you have realized with Museum Ulm and what kind of outreach you did to get people involved.
Would you like me to talk about what Museum Ulm did or what Next Museum IO did?
Yeah, nextmuseum.io. Yeah, museum.
Okay, because this is really different because I'm speaking for one of those ambassadors Diane was talking about. A museum trying to make first steps in the Web3 world, but with Next Museum IO, we were quite faster due to our partner museum, the Kunstpalast and the NRW Forum Düsseldorf. So what did we do? We published a platform that is open to every museum and every curator who wants to start a collaborative project with an open call. That offers artists the possibility to submit artworks and to be finally discovered or selected for an exhibition, and for all kind of people to participate. And this is the thing you were talking about, who wants to participate? What does that actually mean? I can tell you from my experience, talking about art is tough if you are a non-professional. We try to offer possibilities. A lot of museums try to empower their communities to talk about art, to get in a dialogue with curators. It's super intimidating. What we discovered outside were people coming over topics. So they were not coming to talk about art. They got an idea of an exhibition where they can contribute their special knowledge, and they discovered that it's about art in the end. This is what we do. We offer topics. We offer several possibilities to either contribute or having a say, but having a say is a big thing, actually. Most of the people don't want to have a say. But what they like is to talk with curators or with artists or to somehow get a glimpse of this very, very cool thing called art sphere.
I was looking at the Next Museum site and I saw that you have an open call about noodles now.
Yeah.
Could you just say more about that? And I think it was mostly in German, so I had a hard time understanding exactly what was going on, but maybe like what kind of submissions you're getting.
That means that the automatic translation didn't work with your browser. That's, okay, I will have to look that up. What you didn't see actually is the 40 open calls we did the last 4 years, because we're still migrating the data from the former platform to the recent platform. So don't be disappointed. There have been 40 open calls and a lot of really cool exhibitions that were done with it. But talking about pasta, we're searching for a new pasta design. There were tons of designers who struggled with that and did not achieve to do a proper new pasta design. The HFG archive is all about design, and this is why we took for the exhibition an open call as a side activity. You can submit your pasta design if you have one. I will even welcome AI very soon, because I think it's a perfect AI task to design a new pasta. And we have a producer who is willing to do the machine, and yeah, and then we want to have a new pasta in October. Let's see.
Yeah, I do wonder if AI can really understand how important it is for pasta to catch the sauce. But Miki, you're in a somewhat different position because you're not really involved in a museum or an institution. You created ArtSect from the ground up, and you, as I understand, you're more involved in the music and fashion communities than art per se. So could you talk about like what it's like to all those people, maybe like onboard them into Web3?
Yeah, just to distinguish, in the UK, you have to go through quite a laborious process to register as a museum. It takes quite a few years, so we're working on that. So we will eventually turn our gallery into a legally UK classed museum. And then as a curation team that's completely decentralized arts gallery, we put art, music, and fashion at the center of the fine art in the exhibition. So still a gallery, one day will be a museum, but we do have the intersection of art, music, and fashion, what we display as our art. And so onboarding these artists, as we mentioned on the call, we've always used osmosis in the circular economics and the different patterns and business models we use. I always use natural principles, so osmosis in the different sectors. So not really outreach, not trying to do open calls or promote, really just keep it quite insular and networks of networks, friends of friends. That's been pretty successful over 3 years. We started with quite a strong base from the London warehouses, but we've got 2,000 in our active on-call community and then like 20,000 on the Discord. So that all came naturally with no marketing. And in essence of protecting the theme of the DAO. So our inspiration was obviously the Bitcoin white paper, then the Moloch DAO white paper that described how to make DAOs. And then there was a really interesting one from Dr. Lucille Hort in Paris, who wrote the Cyberwitch Manifesto, that shows 3 interesting social groups that are working together on technological emancipation, politics, and spirituality. The Dr. Lucille Hort names them eco-feminists, transhumans, and tech shamans. If you want to look through their paper, it's quite an interesting art description, but it's a really interesting social modeling that they're describing there. So we use those prime groups to source the artist and the theme. So most of the tech gang are tech shamans. Most of the people looking after the community are from the eco-feminist gang, and the osmosis in those networks and the general themes of each group bring in the right people.
Okay, so in the early 2010s, when social media was a new and exciting thing, I spent a lot of time thinking and writing about how museums were adapting Web 2.0 platforms in their audience engagement strategies. And you would hear a lot about like empowerment and democratization, but the conclusion that I came to was that social media was really good at showing how sort of powerless the audience was in relation to the institution rather than actually making changes. In particular, I read a lot of reviews on Yelp that people had written, and they would talk about like the joy of art, but also about these encounters with the language and architecture of museums that left them feeling really alienated. So I am optimistic that the ethos of decentralization can like actually make a difference, but I'm also a bit skeptical. So I would love to hear you talk about examples where you felt like your community or swarm was really taking on a lot of authority and maybe taking projects in directions that you did not expect. Do you want to start, Ugo?
I mean, we have like on a regular basis open calls for our digital exhibition space, virtual.hack.ch, and it was quite fascinating to see that people really wanted to participate, and we had like different suggestion on what we should do and how we should implement it. And like the first exhibition we did, I mean, the DAO is not up and running so long, so we did one exhibition right now, and it's with Maya Man. And it was quite fascinating to see that, like, for us, it was really like we would never had think of her to exhibit her, and it was such a great show, and it came from our audience. So in the digital, it works completely well, but in comparison to the physical, there's still like a huge gap, and I think a future goal should be for an institution to also try these kind of digital exhibition experiments also in the physical, because I think the audience is also physical and not just digital. So we have tried to move it also to the physical in the exhibition space, and keep the experimenting what we have in the digital also like in the real world, because then at the end empowerment is here, and like the community can choose what they want to see in a museum like us.
I just have to admit that I'm a big admirer of the hack. I think what they are doing is really groundbreaking, and it's such a lot of work to empower people and to bring the knowledge to the people. So, to your question, Brian, apart from the offer that is really on the table, that we are willing to share the platform Next Museum IO in a DAO with partners, with museums, with artists, with techies, with people who want to keep the platform alive. And this is a surprise since 1.5 years for me, how this is developing. Swarm curation is what I'd like to talk about and give you an example from the Museum Ulm. The first open call we did was on Paradise, and we did it with a Renaissance fountain as key visual. So you can think of what we were expecting as submissions. I had a 6-month conversation in our Telegram group with the communities, and they wanted to have dystopia, climate perspectives. They wanted to discuss and see and show something about machines and humans interaction. So their paradise was a completely different paradise from ours, and we wanted to do a little show, a side show, just to show what Next Museum IO can do. We ended up with the major show of the year in the basement, with works from oil painting to performance art, and we really went with the community. I was super thankful that my director took the chance. It was not clear at all or planned. We just went with the flow. It was an amazing experience for our museum, because we had to really catch up on technologies, discuss, interact, and it was a whole new show in the end with a totally new audience. All texts were in English because the community discussed everything in English. So you might imagine how our classic audience was somehow shocked that their museum shows something so different they would have never expected to see in our museum. And this was just the beginning.
Really cool. So we've done lots of naughty things in our curation, essentially.
I so love that.
So East London and decentralized curation. So I suppose 3 quick things that I've observed as the founder and we've let happen. CSM, Central St. Martin's in London, the university has been the center of most of these activities, or the students coming from there. So lots of themes from East London. There seems to be quite a large fetish theme in some of the exhibitions. So we've got a big industrial building in which the gallery is placed. So there was a physical exhibition, and it's not just digital NFTs. We have physical art that we record or have the NFC chip and make into an NFT too. So performance with the big industrial hook, and there was a shibari exhibition where there was someone hung from the industrial machinery in the shibari way, and then a fetish element added to that we were all watching in a performance. That was very interesting. Another, so that was during lockdown. CSM, a lot of our students and curators were on their third year at university, and for lockdown in COVID, they weren't allowed to have their exhibition, so we actually allowed them to do the exhibition at ours, and then, so England was in lockdown at the time, and one of the artists decided they were going to set fire to this oil painting and had prepped them before with a fire extinguisher and was like, if this is too much and it gets too bad in the smoke, we're going to have to put it out. So we're going to have to cancel the performance halfway through. And then during the performance, everyone was captivated, everyone was loving it. I looked outside and there's plumes of black smoke coming out of the building, like huge plumes. So I ran in and was like gently tapping the artist, like, yeah, I need you to put it out now, otherwise I'm gonna have to put it out. So I need you to jump in there and do that. That was very interesting. And what was the third one? There was another very interesting thing. It's gone from my head now. But in curating in a decentralized way and giving space for what the teams like to do, radical space, I suppose, then lots of very interesting things have happened. And we will continue to defend them to do that.
Great. So Marina, I ran into you last night at HEC, and you said that the questions I had shared for the panel were very critical, and you asked me what my position on decentralization is. And I'll just say, I mean, I think asking challenging questions makes for a more interesting conversation, but I do like decentralization, but I think there, is a place for centralized activity as well. I think like some things that museums do, like scholarly research, require like a more centralized approach, but other areas can really benefit from that. Like Regina in her talk showed a great example of decentralization aiding the preservation of digital art. And it seems like your efforts are more geared towards things like curation and programming. So I'm just wondering like how you see the dynamic of like the institution and decentralization. I think like Museum Ulm is an example of a museum that is like trying to do both and find ways to help those interact. So do you want to talk about that, like, and the kind of roles you see community members taking on when they're participating in this, and how that changes the roles of people working like full-time within the institution?
I think we become a lot of partners. Of course, if we talk about old masters or archaeology, there's not so much space for non-professionals. But at least you can start a discussion and work around what people would like to know and how you can mediate. When it comes to contemporary topics, to code-based art, the knowledge is outside. So it's obvious that you have to start a conversation. When I see Margit from ZKM here, it's even a possibility for museums to find new partners, new alliance, and start new conversations. But what I really think, curating is a tough job that needs research, know-how, but doing a show needs to know what the audience might want to see or might want to discuss. So it's a mixture. We met our boundaries when it came to swarm curating, so really voting for something. There I could talk 2 hours about, but I won't. I just want to say swarm curation is not about deciding what is shown in the exhibition. It's about the way to come to an exhibition that's important and relevant for the people.
I mean, if I can add something, I see, the traditional roles in museums with these like classical hierarchies, we need that anyway, but I see it maybe we have to shift, and especially like decentralization could like stress all these roles to have like kind of a new way how we see and how we interact in museum and how we see like curators, directors, and we can have like definitely new ideas from an outside perspective, because I think this is very relevant, especially in contemporary art, that we don't just like, yeah, our curator sees this and this artist as good, but what wants the public to see? And if you're like a public funded museum, you are like kind of serving the public. And if people are interested to really curate or help to curate, they should be. And I think this is like the most interesting thing on decentralization, and that's what Friends of Heck in the digital tries to do. And yeah.
Maybe I precise, it's about what they want to have discussed. And that makes it even more fun for the museum staff. I don't think that my colleagues, which come from the classical sphere, are disturbed by that. Okay, some curators may not really like to do that, but I think we should embrace that.
Definitely.
Yeah, my it was an old tag I used to use, was the new digital renaissance. But if you look at where we are in the technology or the timeline, like it seems curation or access to art and experience has kind of flowered and has exploded. So maybe before NFTs, digital art wasn't really a thing, and now digital art is progressively becoming a thing, whether you call it crypto art or an NFT artist or whatever. But I think that platform space and fluidity across like social media, or the way you can experience it in interactive, public, etc., or VR, metaverse, that's really exciting. And what was the question? Decentralization, curation?
Oh yeah, I mean, what kind of roles are people in your community taking on? Is it like, are they curators? Are they sort of like board members? Are they, yeah, what do they do?
Was that the question? Was that the original one?
I think so. I think I tried to sneak a few questions in there. But I mean, your response is great. I think we're really short on time. The one thing I really wanted to bring up was just that like decentralization has sort of gotten more attention because of Web3, but it does precede that. I mean, since the beginning of the internet, people were really interested in this idea of using technology to create alternative governance structures. And I don't know if we have time to discuss it, but this could be like a topic that we can think about afterwards for the rest of the day. But like, I know, Ugo, you talked about like Friends of Heck being a DAO, but maybe you might like think about other ways to do it that aren't necessarily blockchain based. And I think what nextmuseum.io is doing is also not necessarily dependent on the blockchain, even like ArtSect too. So I don't know if we do have a little time, maybe you could reflect on that, or we could take a question. What do you think, Xenia? Okay, one question. Anyone have a question? Okay, Diane has a question.
Who has a question? Well, I'm just using this spot because no one is asking question, but we will have a lot of time to chat afterwards. I'm actually just jumping here because I know that you were maybe about to go in this direction, Brian, but blockchain or not? I think that's the question when we talk about decentralization and sharing the governance power in cultural institutions.
I mean, maybe I can start. I think blockchain is a good way to like get onboarded on the ideas. What, like, for example, the whole crypto anarchist movement had back in the days. And if you really like adapt it for museum in the institution, you maybe then find out maybe it's good to get rid of the technology, but keep the spirit of the decentralization and keep the spirit of like what blockchain is and can be. But it's so hard to onboard people, especially if you're a public museum. And I mean, we had like tons of onboarding workshop every Monday and every Wednesday for over 2 months or 3 months to really like get Friends of Heck started. And we're still like in the very beginning of that people, like our regular visitors, the regular Basel crowd understand what that means. And if we could get rid of the technology and just like keep the spirit up, I think this would be a perfect model for us to work with, because then we have the whole community who wants to get involved to be involved.
Blockchain is a tool. Web3 is more than blockchain. I'm really wondering how much discussion is heating up about blockchain and Web3, because we're talking about tools, and I think every museum or whoever has to evaluate carefully if blockchain is the right thing to handle something. For next Museum I/O, I definitely see some tasks that could be perfectly done with blockchain. But, and that's a question for you, we're talking about wallets and crypto and whatsoever. So when you started your DAOs, were there tons of people ready with their wallets, or did you have to explain like Hugo did?
Yeah, the crypto people all had wallets and lots of crypto, and then all of the artists had no idea what we were talking about. So as you said, we've spent 3-4 years just training, educating, being told we're scammers. Someone set up a fake ArtSect gallery the other day and is now messaging people with our Instagram trying to do that NFT scam thing. So it never stops. The education will never stop. But I think fundamentally for me, decentralization is like an obvious human thing, whether this is currency, asset management, or governance of any institution or education. So it'll be a slow process, but hopefully in the future, we could all peer-to-peer manage all of our amazing world together, ideally.
I'm honestly really thinking a lot about that, because I'm sure that there are not many people with wallets in Ulm, but there are a lot of people with wallets around the globe. So is that a chance for our museum? Should we take it? And I think a lot of museums are wondering if this is the moment, and we're looking at institutions like Heck.
I mean, we use blockchain technology mainly for the tokenization. So it's like super easy to have like on our, our DAO operates on Discord. So we have a token gated Discord area where the community can interact with each other, where they can upload their open calls. And it's basically that. We just use the blockchain technology to like verify the token that you're like able to see the part Friends of Heck. If we would get rid of it, I don't know if anybody would like even see it. So like it would.
I would see it.
Yeah, but I mean, you wouldn't even know that you don't interact with blockchain. But there are other ways. There are technological ways. So it's.
I would miss this beautiful coin in my wallet, which I get.
Definitely.
Okay, but as we heard this morning, NFTs are just certificates for the ownership of digital art. So this is the question: does your museum collect digital art, and is it on blockchain or is it a PDF invoice? I don't know. So this is the discussion. And if you decide, okay, that's the way, and you want to, because this is also exciting. All that's happening around digital art. It's really exciting. And if your museum doesn't collect or has no contemporary art department, maybe not.
Thank you for all the panelists. Before I'm going to close this panel, I know, Brian, you're also organizing a conference on Saturday, which I have been chasing all your information from you, but at least... But at least you can tell us a little bit, what is your conference about, the art of protocols, right? You can share the mics, yeah.
Yeah, in the spirit of decentralization, I gave away my microphone. But yeah, so we'll be talking about the art of protocols and how building software infrastructures or intervening in existing ones can be a critical creative gesture. We'll be talking about conceptual art projects that use Ethereum as a medium. We'll be talking about ordinals and art on Bitcoin. So I think it'll be a really interesting conversation, a nice way to wrap up Digital Art Mile. So I hope those of you who are still around this weekend will join us.
All right, thank you. So please give me a big round of applause for all the speakers on the stage.